Hey gang. Um, so I thought it was about time to do another Acid Archives, and so I'm not sure if anyone's done this album yet, but um, I I'm gonna try to cover it myself. So today we have uh, Craig Smith, and it's a reissue. It's not an original. Story on Craig Smith. It's a pretty fascinating story. He's largely considered kind of an acid casualty. I featured this on Instagram the other day too, and kind of the story on him is that he was a talented guy. He was working in California folk scene, and some people from the Andy Williams show, of all things. Andy Williams in the States was like, like a TV show that did, uh, songs and entertainment and stuff like that. And he wrote some songs for Andy Williams. They liked him, and eventually he broke away from Andy Williams, and he did some work with Michael Nesmith from the Monkees, and they formed a band. I believe it was called Penny Arkade, and were on their way. I mean, it was like there was a kind of a big push behind them, and Craig kind of got a little disenchanted with the music industry. He didn't like the delays. He didn't like that everything was kind of based on money, and he was kind of idealistic young guy, California guy, and he just split and left this potentially, big career behind. Penny Arcade did go on to release some singles, and a couple of them were written by him. And he decided to split, and he went to Turkey, and went on what was called back then the Hippie Trail, which, if you look on a map, goes through Turkey and Syria and all the way through to Pakistan and Afghanistan. And the point of doing all that, they used to say they would go for, like, enlightenment. They're going to find spirituality and Eastern religion. There was also a lot of drugs that they were using along the line. A lot of yeah, a lot of drugs, which is why there were a number of Western uh, young people who used to take this, hippie trail. The reports are that something bad happened to Craig along that route. It's been reported that maybe he was put in prison, that he started some trouble in a small town. It's been reported that he was put in a mental hospital. Um, it's never been real clear as to what happened to him in when he was on the acid trail. He eventually came home and went back living with his parents, and unfortunately, things just didn't. From a personal point of view, he eventually ended up on the streets. No one, they said he um, was prone to get angry, and I'm sure he was suffering from some sort of mental illness issues, and then wasn't getting treated for them, and taking self-medicating with drugs and taking acid and things like that. But his talent was not diminished, and so while he's going through all this, he's also recording and self-producing two pretty amazing records. And this reissue collects both of them. And I stumbled upon this. This reissue was limited to 500. I had read about Craig Smith before. I think this came out in 2019. Um, and it's pretty stunning uh, bit of music. The range on it is all over the place. There's a lot of, probably the best of it is these kind of acid drenched ballads that are really fragile and tell you something about Craig's state of mind. But he's got a great voice and a great style. And yet, I mean, these are wonderful songs, and any record company would have been lucky to have them. Comes with a nice booklet. We see a picture of Craig, and this was before he eventually he got some tattoos that uh, that's him and his girlfriend, and then they go on to tell the story of she gives a lot of testimony as to things that he told. Here's him when he was in the California folk scene, and yeah, he wrote a Christmas song for Andy Williams. I mean, he was really on his way to a career in in he used to call him. You know, he thought he used to claim to have supernatural powers and some really off the cuff things, and he became abusive to his girlfriend, and she eventually split on him and wouldn't have anything more to do with him. But he'd managed to get these two records done, and back in the day, he would literally be standing on the street corner and trying to hawk a stack of records that he'd have with him, and people would buy them. People would see them and uh, they would purchase them. And eventually, over time, um, you know, Smith tragically died, and a lot of it had to do with drugs and his lifestyle, if you want to call it that, of living on the streets. And over time, the recordings that he had made became kind of famous and kind of well regarded for people who liked psychedelic music. And I had heard a couple of tracks. I think yeah, it's really good. There are some Penny Arkade songs on here too, and which he put on there. So it's really it almost functions as a kind of overview of his output. Background, I got one of the LPs on right now, and you can hear just what a nice quality his voice had. And there's a song Fire and Ice, I believe, on here. Just really beautiful track. And yeah, this is around. It hasn't. When I grabbed it and I saw that it was 500 copies, I read about it in this, the Ugly Things magazine, and I thought it would go really quick because, it's kind of a story behind it, and that people would grab a hold of it. And it was a good price. I mean, for a double album set, and you got all kind of like extra goodies with it. Um, and but it's still. I checked on Discogs. It's still available for, kind of a reasonable price. So if you're at all interested, it's well worth the I think it was $30 or something like that, or copies were available for that. And I don't think it's gone up since then. But for what you get, it's a really cool album, and it's a little bit sad, in parts where he gets real fragile, and kind of the way his such potential. You say that such potential, and that it didn't. He made some amazing music, and maybe that was more important to him than living a lush lifestyle. And I hate that we always grade everything based on the financial success. I've got no issue with financial success. We all want that, and but it shouldn't be the only grade, especially when it comes to art, and music, and films, and so much that we admire in art was made by people who never realized any financial reward for it. And certainly, Smith was one of those people. And let's say that he really was an amazing success, because what he did is he created two spectacular records that we can enjoy today. And rather than being sad for him, and let's celebrate Craig Smith and his addition to the Acid Archives. So there, I'm glad I got that in. This is a really cool record, and if you can grab it, I highly recommend it. Um, I've listened to it dozens of times, and it never grows old. And it's one of those records that you peel a little layer off every time you hear it. So, all right, everyone, thank you, and we'll see you later.